Alan, tell us your name and what you do.
How you doing? I'm Alan Bubich. I'm the founder of Social Horsepower.
Question number one. What has been, and you can use your new business or you can use past businesses, but what has been the hardest department or function to scale? Why has it been difficult? And what have you learned along the journey?
That's a good question. So for us, the hardest department to scale has been the uh, technology department, um, and the reason is there's a diametrically opposed situation where you want to you want to stay in Canada or you want to stay in North America, um, but it's so cost prohibitive. And what ends up happening is, you've got grants like Shred here in Canada. American companies come along, they create a Canadian entity, and they gobble up all this top end talent. And the reason they're able to do that is because one, it's already 30 cents on the dollar for an American company to, be paying a Canadian employee. And then the second thing is, I think Shred credits are up to 60% of their salary. So now here I am, you're a small business owner, you're trying to compete against Microsoft, who's, or Shopify or IBM or any of these companies that come and set up Google, another example, they come and set up these huge shops in Canada. They're paying 10 cents on the dollar, right? Because 30%, 5% exchange rate, and then another 60% gets clawed back through Shred credits. And here I am, one, trying to maintain a Shred department to even apply for those credits, and then two, if you've got someone who's looking for a job and their two options are I can go work at Google or I can go work for Mr. No Name, becomes difficult. So of course the next natural solution is let's go offshore where you can start to maybe gain some traction. Here's where things get difficult. The challenge is the language barrier, and I'm sure that folks have experienced this who have gone the offshore route, which is um, not so much the language itself, but just the understanding, you know, all the
The
way down to
cultural nuance, we'll call it.
yeah, the cultural nuances, all the way down to the cellular level, even something as simple as naming variables in a way that other developers can understand what's happening in that context. And then it scales all the way up to, it seems like in a lot of countries like the Philippines or India, where you would be hiring these developers, don't have the same SaaS culture that we have here in North America. So something that you would think would be obvious, like, hey, we got to program a login screen. In our, culturally, we've all seen so many login screens, and the workflow of a login screen. When you hand that off to someone who maybe is in Bangladesh, maybe is in India, maybe is in the Philippines, culturally, it's so completely different. So what ends up happening is you definitely there's money savings, but then the problem is you have to layer on a level of project management that's beyond exhausting. So, you're caught between a rock and a hard place. Do you want to spend 200,000 per dev, which is for a lot of startups not tenable, especially when you try to scale to five, you're at $1 million, or do you want to offshore, spend a lot less, and frankly, to be honest with you, it's that gap is closing every day. Um, you know, those people aren't stupid either. They're starting to figure out that there's a lot more meat on the bone for them as developers. So, you know, it's now maybe 100 grand for a developer in the Philippines, where it was a lot less before. So that gap is closing, and then you have to layer on an entire set of project management. So that's been the most difficult challenge for us in that regard, and continues to be to this day.
Fantastic.
My name is Courtney Keel. I am the owner and founder of Expert Marketing Advisors. We work with B2B tech companies and increase our demand gen. We're just end-to-end marketing, so essentially extra support for the existing execs and marketing folks out there.
Fantastic. Okay, question number one. What is the hardest department or function in your business to scale? Why has it been that way? And what have you learned along the journey?
Okay, so I think that was three questions, but let's see. So keep me honest because I'm a little foggy with all this, COVID nonsense. Anyways, the hardest function to scale is probably sales. And I think it just one of my clients once told me, he's like, Court, at the end of the day, the number one salesperson will always be the founder. It's very hard to pass off all the stories. And that's what folks want to hear. They want to hear, you need to establish that trust and have that goodness passed on to a sales rep. So that's the hardest one to scale. I do think we are doing a really good job of it at this point. All the stories are now no longer mine. They're the teams and all of the above. And they're, been able to get their arms around all of those conversations. What was the other? So you had two others.
Well, where in the sales process do you get involved? Are you basically now like a sales engineer, subject matter expert that airdrops in, or they run it soup to nuts?
I mean, I can be. The team is built to be very empowered, and they can lean on each other. They can pull me in if they want, if they think it's appropriate. Sometimes I'll get like one-to-one referrals or something of that sort, and I'll make sure to, be a part of those conversations. But no, I really have made a point of not being a bottleneck or be, somebody that just kind of airdrops in and causes chaos. It's important that the team functions without me as if I'm not there.
What did you learn along the journey of scaling your sales team?
So when you think it's time to move on from a sales rep, you're probably already 6 months late.
Yeah.
I mean, I really enjoy working with sales. I think there's a lot of friendly banter and competition and all of the above. So I do tend to, really put things on a silver platter as much as possible. But at the end of the day, yeah, I think what I've learned most is it's best to just, again, get out of the way and let folks either sink or swim.
Fantastic.
Yeah, Joe Ardiser. My company is Smart Pricing Table, and we our product is proposal software for marketing agencies. I ran a web design shop for about 12 years.
First question: what has been the hardest department or function to scale? Why has it been difficult? And what have you learned along the journey?
Trying to think, candidly, Jamie, my biggest company I had was 10 people. We didn't really have departments, and my company right now is kind of small. That what comes to mind is just sales. For my company right now, sales is really hard to scale because of just the information and the confidence that kind of person needs. So I guess I can answer it in that way.
Yeah, because I'll then retort that's my answer too. So, and I'm a professional seller, yet I'm the cobbler's kid. So we'll go into that. So I'll ask you that a question again. What has been the most difficult role, function, job inside your organization to scale? Why has that been so difficult? And what have you learned along the journey?
Yeah, I would say, Jamie, it's probably sales. I actually recently tried to replicate myself. I do a lot of demonstrations with our company and our product. And I think a lot of times as business owners, as entrepreneurs, we look at what we're doing, it's so easy. And then you get in there and, I start having all these demos with someone else in mind. And I think, good grief, they're going to get eaten alive. And so, maybe that has to do with our product. I think, different products have different needs. But that's been my biggest challenge. What we've actually learned along the way, it's a little bit different, but we're actually de-emphasizing our demo altogether, which is something we can do so that we don't have to necessarily hire more salespeople.
How would you accomplish scaling beyond founder-led sales to sales-led sales organization if you were to remove the crutch of the demo?
Yeah, well, I think that's what we're trying to do right now. And so one of my big efforts was onboarding emails. We didn't have those previously, and so we spent a lot of time creating a daily tip that goes out with our SaaS product that will give you training on the tool. I go over a lot of things on how to think about, the product, but also how to think about sales. Like I'm really big into something called the proposal review meeting. And so if I can, replicate myself with video, with training materials, with sales materials, then that can help any other person that's, talking with customers, whether that be in sales or, maybe just following up with an engagement.
Yeah, for sure. For me, my answer would be the same. Sales has always been, ironically, considering I've built now multiple agencies to 7 figures, but did it through founder-led sales. And it's been the transfer of knowledge to be willing to be patient enough to document what I do and to recognize that not every facet of that sales process needs to be tackled, A, by one person, it can be broken up to multiple people. And two, I can still be involved in the process from a subject matter expert or what's known as a sales engineer, but somebody else would professionalize the journey for the customer so that it's not a world of cowboy taking customer from sales qualified lead to close, but somebody's actually bringing the customer professionally through that process where I'm there just to answer questions along the journey.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Another thing that makes me think of, Jamie, is using AI. I mean, it's just crazy. I use ChatGPT all the time, and it knows so much about my company. It knows so much about the way that I write, my voice, my tone, my likes, my dislikes. It knows all of that. And we're getting into this new world where you can have like a custom GPT. And so for our company, it's a consideration we're having. Should we have a knowledgeable central source GPT that I can train, that other people from my company can train, and then a salesperson or a customer service rep can actually just interact with that directly? It's pretty wild where things are going.